welcome to the next edition of Think Suburbia, the podcast of the Suburban Virginia Republican Coalition. I'm Jill Cook, your co-host and one of the founders of SUVGOP, and Mary Campbell is my co-host, another one of the founders of SUVGOP. Thank you for tuning in. Mary.
Thank you, Jill. Today we are delighted to have with us Glenn Youngkin. Glenn, welcome.
Thank you, Mary.
As you all know, Glenn is running for governor in the state of Virginia. And we know, Glenn, a little bit about you. We know that you're a native Virginian and that you have worked very hard in your lifetime to be where you are today. So I'm going to let you tell because you're much better at that than I am. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Great. Well, first, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to SVGOP and all that you do. And Jill and Mary, it's just such an important organization and work that you do. So thank you. I'm Glenn Youngkin and I'm running for governor. And I am a homegrown Virginian. And I was born in a little part of Richmond called Bon Air. And that's where we started our story. When I was in 7th grade, my dad lost his job and our family moved to Virginia Beach. And my mom did what so many strong women do. And she just kind of pulled us together and said, I got this. And we moved down to Virginia Beach and I learned 3 really important lessons there. One was that strong women can accomplish just about anything. And my mother's my hero and always will be. I filled out a form the other day to who was your hero? And I said, my mom, with an exclamation point. I also learned that families can do anything. And we got help from grandparents, et cetera, at that time. And it was really important. And then finally, I learned how to work hard. I got a job taking out trash and washing dishes at a diner down at Virginia Beach, the Belvedere Hotel Diner. And that was an incredibly important time for me because I learned that there's dignity in work. And I remember when I went and deposited that first paycheck in the bank at the grocery store around the corner from our house. And I just had an amazing sense of purpose and accomplishment. And I think that that's something that we just all have to remember, that there is real dignity in work. And it's never left me. It's never left me. I was particularly good at taking a round ball and putting it through an orange hoop. And I had a chance to play college basketball. And that was extraordinary. I went to Texas. I went to a school called Rice University in Houston, Texas. And I was a mechanical engineer. But 2 great things happened to me in Texas. I got a great education, and the Lord blessed me by introducing me to Suzanne. And we've been married now for just about 27 years. We came back to Virginia right when we got married, and we made our home here. And by the way, that was a great decision because my family was still here. My parents were in Richmond, and my sister and her husband and 3 kids were in Chesapeake. And I had a great fortune of going to work for a small company called the Carlyle Group. And it grew to be a big company. And I worked really hard there and I had a chance to run it for a while. But last summer, I had a real moment. I was doing the same thing all of you were doing. I was working, taking a lot of time with our church, which was really important to us. And Suzanne and I were raising our kids. And we have 4 great kids. And I know you're not supposed to be prideful, but I just really do say that I'm proud of my children. But I got up from work on a Friday late in the day and I grabbed Suzanne and we went for a walk and I told her that I was going to quit my job the next day and that I was going to prepare to run for governor. And she smiled, looked at me and said, are you having a midlife crisis? And I said, I'm having a Virginia crisis. Our beloved Commonwealth is in the ditch, not at the crossroads. A lot of people use the word crossroads and sadly, we haven't even made it to the intersection. Virginia has really been in such a bad state economically. Our constitutional rights are getting trampled on. And I just told her that we were going to get off the sidelines, get in the arena, and we're going to do something about it. And we prayed together and we knew our lives were going to change permanently. But this is something that we felt really called into doing. And so here we are running for governor. And we're really excited to be doing this. And I got to tell you, it's just been an amazing now almost 8 weeks. Of campaigning and meeting Virginians all over this great Commonwealth. And Mary, I think that my career, my upbringing, my experiences prepare me like no one else to do this job because I know that I want to go to work for Virginia. I actually want to I want to do the work for Virginians to put Virginia back where she belongs as the best state in America to live and work and raise a family.
Yeah.
Glenn,
Wow.
certainly if anybody can do that after what you've done, especially with your life and the Carlisle group, we know that you would be a very successful governor. So thank you very much for running.
Yeah. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you very much. On to the first question. You made a point of promising to put Virginia back on top. I love that phrase, and you've referenced that before. Do you have a plan for achieving that goal? And I just want to mention too, we understand that you were the first Republican candidate to actually sign the Americans for Tax Reform pledge. So we thank you for that. But tell us how you're going to put Virginia back on top.
Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get Virginia open. And sadly, what's happened to Virginia over the course of the last 8 years under Democrat leadership is that Virginia's economy, Virginia's job creation has actually trailed our peer states in a material way. And I often am frustrated when the Democrat leaders talk about Virginia being such a strong state to do business in and all the jobs that have been created, when the reality is, when we really look at the data, our peer states of Tennessee and North Carolina and South Carolina and Maryland and Georgia, they have all grown substantially faster than Virginia, 50% faster, 70% faster in some cases over a course of 8 years. And the job creation in those states has actually been 50% higher than the job creation in Virginia. And this results in an opportunity for Virginians that is just less than our peer states. And so, Jill, let me just start there. We have to get open, and we have to declare that Virginia is open for business. Governor Northam, when he shut down our economy and then kept it closed, and he kept it closed unnecessarily for a long period of time and has restricted the reopening. He's kept our schools closed unnecessarily and restricted their reopening. So step one here is to get open. Step two then is to really reestablish a business climate that in fact keeps the businesses that are here. Like, Advanced Auto Parts, which was headquartered in Roanoke, Virginia, is now headquartered in Raleigh, North Carolina. And Norfolk Southern, where I went to high school, is now headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. Norfolk Southern in Atlanta, Georgia. Our small businesses have absolutely been crushed by Governor Northam's I think, lack of vision about how to lead through this pandemic. And we have to reinvigorate our small businesses, which are really the lifeblood of our communities. And then finally, we have to bring new businesses to Virginia. And this is a big moment, because what's happened with the Democrat extra taxes and the bureaucracy and the red tape is we've created an environment where businesses would just choose to go elsewhere. And there's this constant threat that has been imposed upon all these businesses of doing away with right to work. And the Virginia legislative bodies have continually reiterated that they want to do away with right to work. And no company is going to move here, none, with the threat of right to work going away. So we have to change everything. We have to change the culture. We got to get open, and we actually have to be pro-business. Second thing we have to do is get our cost of living down. And this is why I signed the Taxpayer Protection Pledge so quickly. What's happened, of course, is through tax increases, through fee increases, through utility bill increases, Virginia has become a very high cost place to live. You can't really afford housing. And this isn't just a Northern Virginia issue. This is across our great Commonwealth. Again, we see our cost of living escalating faster than our peer states. The result of this is that Virginia families have been moving away from Virginia faster than families move to Virginia. We have had net family migration out of our great Commonwealth. And guess where they're going? Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and Texas. And if we keep having our families move away, this is like a canary in the coal mine, folks. We have to wake up and get Virginia moving. And so this is, as your governor, what I have been trained to do. My 30-year business career is like no others. There's nobody else in this field who has the experience that I have in building business and creating jobs. The firm that I was fortunate enough to have a chance to run, we had assets of over $230 billion that we managed, and companies that employed hundreds and thousands of employees. And this is 4 times the size of Virginia's annual budget. And so while I know I'm going to need a lot of help and I do not have all the answers, I think that I am best prepared to lead Virginia out of this pandemic and get her going again and reestablish the prospects for Virginians, our college students, our high school students, to want to stay in Virginia and build their lives, because the opportunities here should be great.
Glenn, we know that one of the biggest challenges we as Republicans will face in this election is the voter integrity. And certainly with all of the changes that the Democrats are putting in order to give their candidates leverage for election, I know that you have been very concerned about this as well, and would love to know, you have a 5-point, I believe, plan for correcting this situation. Could you tell us about that?
I feel that election integrity is one of the biggest issues facing our democracy today, and one that as governor I will address immediately. And this issue is constantly referred to as a Republican issue. But let's be clear. This is not a Republican issue. This is not a Democrat issue. Although I will tell you, the Democrats were complaining mighty loudly when Hillary Clinton lost. Let's just remind each other. Everybody always says, she said, they stole the election from me. And let's just talk about all the accusations of Russian interference. And so this is not a Republican issue, and it's not a Democrat issue. It's a democracy issue. And at the cornerstone of this democracy is faith in the process and the results of our election process. And so we must fix this. And so, yeah, I launched our election integrity task force now about 5 weeks ago. And we have had Virginians signing up all over the Commonwealth to add their voice to our voice. And we announced a 5-point straightforward common sense plan. Not 10 points, not 15, not 20. I always find politicians have 10 and 20-point plans. And guess what? Nothing ever gets done. And I'm all about delivering results. So our 5-point plan is really straightforward. First, the Department of Elections should be made transparent and independent. And right now it is influenced, if not controlled, by the governor. And that's not right. Even when I'm governor, that's not right. It should be transparent and independent, not political. Second of all, the voter rolls should be updated at least every month. And if people have sadly died or sadly moved away, they should come off the voter roll. I cannot believe that they've suspended this practice. It's once a month is just easy. We should get on with this. Third, we should make sure that everybody who shows up to vote brings a state-issued ID. Now, let me just be clear. I have a 23-year-old son. I have 4 great kids. And if he actually wants to go to 7-Eleven and buy a beer, he's got to present a state-issued ID. Yeah. If he wants to get it on an airplane, he's got to present a state-issued ID. And by the way, if you get your vaccine in Virginia, you have to present a state-issued ID. But we actually don't require one to vote. I don't understand that. This is not hard. Fourth point is that if you want a mail-in ballot, fill out your application, demonstrate you're a citizen with your social security number, and sign your application. And then when you mail back in your ballot, there should be 2 signatures, yours plus an observer. Again, Governor Northam suspended this practice unnecessarily. And then we should just match the signatures. Now, Visa does this every time you sign a credit card statement. This is not wildly hard technology to match signatures. And then finally, when we count the ballots, we should make sure that our observers, both Democrats and Republicans, certify they were allowed to do their jobs. And the voting machine should be tested beforehand and audited afterwards. 5 easy steps in order to restore Virginians' faith in our election process and its outcomes. And we must get on this right away because, as I said, this is at the core of our democracy.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I love the point that it's a citizen issue. It's not a party issue. We should all be concerned about this. Absolutely. Thank you. That sounds like a great plan. So moving on to another hot button issue here. In Virginia, especially, the abysmal record of the Democrat administration regarding law and order. They have failed us. They have failed the citizens. They have failed the police officers, the corruption and misconduct of the parole board, and the lack of support for our frontline workers. It's a huge problem. Can you give us your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Jill, thank you for raising this topic. I mean, it is just a tragedy, I have to say, what's happened to both, I would say, the tone and the morale of our heroes that stand up for us all the time. And first, let me just start with the parole board issue. This is rotten to the core. And just to make sure everybody understands what we're talking about. So police officer Michael Connors, who is a Richmond police officer, was murdered in cold blood. And the parole board, which was led by a Terry McAuliffe appointee, Adrian Bennett, actually decided to let Michael Connors out on parole before he was supposed to be. And in fact, did it in a way that did not comply with the rules and the laws. And in fact, they're supposed to notify the prosecutors and the family before they do this and allow them to make a statement as to whether this is appropriate or not. They didn't do that. And they actually didn't do it in a number of cases. It just so happens that this one was so egregious. And so after an inspector general actually came through and identified the fact that they had not complied with the rules and the laws, the inspector general's report was actually redacted. And someone actually tried to cover this up. And so when a bright light is shined on this, everybody says, well, wait. But there is a fundamental issue here that, as I said, is rotten to the core. And I don't believe it's getting the appropriate investigation time and attention. And so we actually called for a federal investigation. I quickly sent out a demand notice for a federal investigation, which still we're working to get started. Because this is what the McAuliffe and Northam administrations have been up to with regards to our parole board. And it is so unacceptable. They should all resign. And we should get new people in here. And as governor, that's what I will demand. That's what I'll demand. Transparency and accountability in these incredibly important positions. These are not political appointees. And by the way, Adrian Bennett's now a judge. I mean, this is just not right. Not right.
Wow.
With regards to our heroes, those that stand up for us, law enforcement across the great Commonwealth, I mean, they've been defunded, they've been demonized, they've been demoralized. And this is much more than just funding, and funding is a major problem. But what we see as a result is actually shortage in the ranks of this most important function that keeps us all safe, with these heroes that put their lives on the line every day in order to protect us. And in fact, we actually have shortages in the academies to the point where I've spoken to a number of sheriffs over the course of the last couple of weeks, and they are worried about manpower issues. Sheriff Stolley in Virginia Beach had to lower the entry age into his academy to 18 in order to try to get people to fill up the academy so he could fill out his full staff. Folks, this is an enormous issue for us. And again, this is not at the expense of transparency and accountability and training, but this is a fundamental issue of leadership. And as governor, I will stand up and say, I have got your back. I will stand up for you because you stand up for us. And there's been this litany of legislation that constantly is surfaced in our Democrat-led legislature to actually reduce an assault on a police officer from a felony to a misdemeanor, or to actually strip police officers and law enforcement of protection from civil suits when they are simply performing the oath that they swore to. This is just so fundamentally wrong. And not to mention the fact that we must stand up and fund them appropriately. Goodness gracious, they actually need both the compensation and the equipment to do the jobs that we need them to do. So Jill, this is right up at the top of something that as governor, I will be on from get-go to make sure that those that stand up for us know that I will stand up for them.
Excellent.
Glenn, we know that certainly under the Democrat rule here in Virginia, that many of our liberties and freedoms are at stake. We may lose them. For example, our First and Second Amendment rights. We're very concerned about this. Can you give us your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I can, because this is, right at the heart of why I got up out of my desk that Friday and decided to quit my job and run for governor to get in the arena to make a big difference. Our First Amendment right, the first part of our First Amendment right, actually guarantees our religious freedom. And then it goes on to guarantee our freedom of expression. And both of those have been so violated, not just during this time, but over the last number of years. Our governor actually opened up massage parlors and ABC stores, but kept my church closed and wouldn't let us gather. I mean, it took a Supreme Court ruling to, in fact, put that right. How hard is it to read our Constitution and our Bill of Rights and understand that that is guaranteed under our Constitution? Our freedom of expression continues to be violated. The cancel culture that exists today from big tech, we actually have to stand up and say, no, I am absolutely, as governor, going to find big tech, and I'm going to stand up for our First Amendment rights. And gosh, our Second Amendment rights are under assault from both Richmond and Washington. Yes. And as a gun owner who I enjoy hunting, I enjoy shooting with my sons, but I actually keep a gun in our house for our protection as well. And I'm going to protect our right to keep and bear arms. This is fundamental. But Mary, let me just add one more thing, which is we all have to be very cognizant of what's happening in Washington today and the violation of our 10th Amendment right, which is in fact states' rights. And two amazing things are making their way through right now. In the most recent COVID spending bill, as I call it, there's a limitation on states' ability to actually have tax refunds and tax cuts. Now think about this, the federal government trying to limit Virginia's right to actually have a tax rebate or to cut our taxes. I mean, this is unconstitutional, and we know it is. And then H.R. 1, which is making its way through, is trying to impose federal election law on the states. So Mary, this is comprehensive violation of our Bill of Rights and our Constitution. And we have to stand up for it. We just must. And so as governor, this is where I'll be. We'll have a strong group with the lieutenant governor and the attorney general, not to mention the fact that, Mary, we're going to take back 6 seats at least from our House, and we're going to take back our House of Delegates this year. And we're going to be able to get on offense as opposed to being on defense. And this is an extraordinarily important year for us to do this. And this is why I have this conviction in my heart about what we're doing here, which is to win at the top of the ballot, but also win across the lieutenant governor and the attorney general. I always talk about, I'm going to carry around a broom and say, we're sweeping these 3 offices. Awesome. But we're going to bring a host of other Republicans into office with us, because it will not be a lonely victory in November. It will absolutely be a comprehensive victory across Virginia, where we stand up and say, no, we actually want something quite different for Virginia. We want to put her back to where she belongs as the best state in America to live and work and raise a family.
Glenn, that leads me into a final question before we ask, maybe some personal things, but you have your Virginia Wins plan. And that's the whole, team approach. You want to win as a team on the statewide offices, but your Virginia Wins, tell us a little bit about that.
Jill, it's incredibly important that we recognize that politics is really local. And what we've seen over the course of the last number of years, and specifically the last 3 or 4, is an incredible effort from influencers from outside Virginia to put money into Virginia and influence Commonwealth's attorney races, school board races, sheriff races, supervisory board races, city council races, delegate races. And Jill, this is wrong. And so we launched Virginia Wins, Suzanne and I did a couple weeks ago. It's separate from the campaign. And we made a 7-figure forward commitment to Virginia Wins in order to support these most important races and to support them so that we can, yes, try to counterbalance some of this outside money coming in, and also to bring into office with us in November a whole crop of new Republicans, conservatives, who will fill these most important positions on these boards and in these offices. And if we are absolutely going to change the future of Virginia, we have to lock arms together and work in all of these places. And this is a multi-year effort, not just in 2021, because there's many offices that aren't up this year. And so we'll be there in 2022 and 2023 and 2024, making sure that we're working across the Commonwealth so that Republicans know that they don't have to do this alone, that there's a whole team behind them, because this is how we're going to take back our Commonwealth, is together. We're going to bring Republicans together like never before, and we're going to change the future of our Commonwealth, and we're going to change the future of our country. And that's what gets me so excited, Jill.
Excellent. Thank you. Mary.
You know, it's so exciting, Glenn, to see you with such a vision for correcting all of the things that are going on here in Virginia. I just hope and pray that all the voters out there are going to carefully look at all of our candidates and hopefully vote Republican and turn around what is going on in this state. Glenn, I'd like to address another issue today, if you don't mind. I've received a flyer about you with your business dealings with China and also some contributions to some groups that are quite questionable. Could you maybe explain that? I'm sure you're well aware of the flyer that has gone out to Republican voters.
Yeah, Mary, thank you for asking me that question, because I think I need to address this directly. And these flyers are being put out by somebody, and this person, in fact, I think is behaving very much like the prosecuting attorneys who were trying to impeach President Trump. They're taking snippets of things and, in fact, piecing them together and turning it into untruths. And so let me just address them directly. Okay. So first of all, on China, Carlyle does business in China. When I was leading Carlyle, I did business in China. It was a small amount of what we did, but Carlyle's a big firm, and so it was a meaningful amount of business. And Mary, I was good at it. I took on the Chinese. I actually negotiated tough deals with them, and one could say I actually beat the Chinese. And I know exactly what they're up to. They have a 100-year plan to take over the world, and I think that we just all need to recognize that. And in fact, President Trump recognized it. He invited me and thanked me for helping in the U.S.-China trade deals. And when he announced it, he said, "I want to thank Glenn Youngkin of the Carlyle Group, a fine group, for his support." I was pretty proud that day, not for me, but because President Trump cut a tougher deal that benefited America, American jobs, American workers. This was really important. And so, Mary, I asked the question, who do Virginians want actually on their side leading these kinds of negotiations? Do you want people that have never done anything like this before, ever? Nobody. And there's nobody else in this race who has done anything like this before to the degree nor to the success that I have. Do you want the varsity? Or do you actually want folks that have never done anything, and that's the JV? And I think Virginians deserve the varsity. And this is the real world experience and the real understanding about how to win, but also what the Chinese are up to that I think Virginians deserve. With regards to giving money to questionable organizations, liberal organizations, my wife, Suzanne, and I have never done that. We have absolutely supported Republican candidates that needed our support. We've been called in to help make the difference with other people in key races to hold the Senate. But we also, well, Mary, one thing I will tell you is I did support one Democratic candidate, and it was a Republican who turned Democrat in order to try to primary AOC in New York. And I felt that getting AOC out of Congress was a worthy goal. And so, yes, I did donate money to one Democrat, that one. But otherwise, we have supported Republican candidates, Republican causes, and otherwise the vast majority of our charitable giving has gone to Christian causes around the world, around our great country, and around our great Commonwealth in order to make a difference. And so when people try to conflate things that didn't happen and pin me with them, that really frustrates me. This is why people hate politics. This is why people hate politics. This is why I got into this race, because I think that Virginians deserve a different kind of candidate, somebody who isn't so focused on winning that they're willing to do anything to win and actually say things that aren't true about somebody. And that's just not the way that I'm behaving. It's not the way I think we should behave. And therefore, I think that Virginians deserve a different kind of leader. And that's why I think that I'm winning. In fact, they don't do this to you if you're not winning. And that's why I believe we're going to win in May. And that's why I believe that we're going to win in November. And Mary, I'm sorry for the long answer, but I really appreciate you asking that question because it's really important.
No, and I'm sure everyone will really appreciate hearing from you directly. So thank you for answering that.
Thank you very much.
As we wrap up today, we've covered a number of topics I know that are very important to you, but is there anything you would like to talk about that perhaps we haven't mentioned yet?
Well, Mary, I just want to pick up on this last topic. We can win, and we will win.
Yes.
And I think the lessons learned over the course of the last 11 years of losing statewide, hopefully are being seen by Republicans across the Commonwealth, because they certainly are by me, which is if we run the same playbook, if we try to do things the same way, we won't win. And that's why I'm doing this. This is why I'm running, because I think we need a different kind of candidate. We need an outsider. We need someone who has not run for political office. We need someone who hasn't actually tried and lost and tried and lost and tried and lost. We need someone who brings a fresh perspective to this. And I'm a conservative. I'm a man of faith. I'm a successful business leader. I know how to build business and create jobs. And I believe I'm a Republican who can bring the Republican Party together in order to do what we must do this year, which is win. We absolutely have to resource this campaign in a way that no Republican campaign has ever been resourced in order to take on Terry McAuliffe head on, because I believe he'll be the nominee, or whoever else they send. We're going to absolutely have to grassroots this. We're going to have to lock arms collectively and knock on doors. We're going to have to register voters across Virginia like we never have before, because there are so many Republicans who actually aren't registered to vote. And we need to register them to vote, because guess what? The Democrats are doing this.
Yes.
And so we have to compete. And I am so ready to compete with all of you to actually go win. And those aren't empty words. Those are active words. We have to go win. And this is what Virginia deserves. A different kind of leader with a different kind of vision on where we're going to go and how we're going to get there. And that's why I have such a conviction to go do this, to actually go work for all of you. I don't actually want to get the governor title. I want to go do the job. And I want to go work for all of you so that we can actually see a different future in Virginia and a different future in our country. And I just can't wait to go to work with all of you and lock arms and get this done. So thank you both for having me. Such a pleasure. And I just look forward to working with you over the course of the next 8 months and the next 4 years in putting Virginia back where she belongs as the best state in America to live and work and raise a family.
Well, thank you, Glenn. It's certainly inspirational. We all want this. It's a wonderful, wonderful message and such positivity and energy. And this is what we need. You're absolutely right. So should somebody want to get involved in your campaign, do you have a website you'd like to share, or social media, or how do we do this? How does somebody join Team Youngkin?
So all of the above. Easiest place to start is on our website, which is www.youngkinforgovernor.com, YOUNGKIN, 4FOR governor.com, and land there and you can find everything. But we'd love to have you land there and sign up to be a delegate. We'd love for you to land there and sign up to be a volunteer. We'd love to have you land there and get involved and follow us. You can also follow us on all the social media platforms at Glenn Youngkin. Every one of them. And we have just a great group of folks that has grown to be a very large group of folks who are following us. And then finally, and I just ask this with great humility, for those of you that actually have a prayer life, pray for us. This is new and different. I'm 6'6", 230 pounds. You know, I can take it. But for my wife and kids, I really would ask you to add them to your prayer list. And then finally, let's just lock arms. Let's go get this done, because we can do this. And I look so forward to winning in May, on May 8th at the convention, and moving on and winning in November, and really changing the future of Virginia. So thank you all.
Glenn, we're so delighted to have you with us today. As you know, we are a relatively new group here in Northern Virginia. We are a suburban group that's covering all the different localities here in Northern Virginia. So we're very excited as we move into this election season, and just want to thank you again for being such an excellent candidate. We wish you the very best, and thank you again for joining us today.
Great. Thank you all.
Thanks, Glenn. I add my thanks, and thank you, Mary. And thank you, listeners and viewers, for this edition of Think Suburbia, podcast of the Suburban Virginia Republican Coalition. You can go to our website, SUVGOP.com, and there's a whole menu of our past podcasts with candidates and on issues. But please go on there and link onto the podcast page and see what we have to offer. And we look forward to seeing you on our next edition of Think Suburbia. Thank you so much.